Welcome to the next installment of my video lecture series for international economics. And in this particular video lecture, I'm going to be taking a look at production, consumption, and trade in the Standard Model and introducing indifference curves to the analysis of international trade. I have some videos posted on indifference curves, budget constraints, etc. So if you feel you need to review that material, that video is available to you. But in the Standard Model, and if we don't have any international trade, this is the level of production that will occur in this particular country. We will be producing, we will be producing where the ISO value line is just tangent to the production possibilities frontier. So we have that point right there. So this is the level of production without trade, and this is also the level of consumption since there is no trade. So with the ISO value line, and as I've previously stated in other videos, I call it the price line, gives us Q1 of food and Q1 of cloth at that particular point. What we're concerned with is what is going to be the level of consumption after trade and how we can illustrate that the individuals who are involved with trade are going to have a higher level of utility. Your book references this as welfare. So we do this with indifference curves. And let me draw in an indifference curve here. So, let me just adjust the shape a little bit. And remember, when there's indifference curves, there's actually what we economists refer to as an indifference map. That means there's multiple indifference curves. So we have this indifference curve, and let me duplicate this multiple times here and bring these in here. All right, so those three lines that I have brought in are indifference curves. And let me change the color of it a little bit there. Okay, so all three of these are indifference curves. They all generally have this type of shape here. And the thing that you need to remember is that the further the indifference curves move outward, further we move out here, the higher the level of utility. So this one has the lowest level of utility or welfare associated with it. This has the second lowest. And out of the three that we have drawn, this has the highest level of welfare or utility associated with that. So for this particular example, we are going to see consumption where the indifference curve that's the furthest out and is still just tangent to the ISO value line. So let me put in a point right there. So that is, and that size is a little small compared to the other one. Let me make it a little bit larger. There we go. So that point right there is where the indifference curve that is furthest from the origin is still tangent to the ISO value line, or as I refer to it as the price line. So this will give us the level of consumption after trade. So if we go from that point over to the axis for food, and let me change that to a dotted line, and we do the same thing for cloth production, this will give us consumption after trade. And let me duplicate this. And I'll indicate that this is the quantity 2 of food. And let me do the same thing here, because this will be the second quantity of cloth. And let me actually, since they're so close there, let me just draw in a line indicating that. There you go. So this gives us the new level of consumption after we have a trade occurring between these two nations. So what did this country do? Well, this was its original production of cloth, and this is what their consumption of cloth now is. So you can see that they are shipping cloth to the other country. So this is the level of exports right there. And actually, let me move it up in here so it's a little bit easier to see. So the movement from Q1C to Q2C is the level of exports of cloth from this particular country. And if we move, our original consumption of food was Q1, and now we are consuming at Q2, this is the level of imports of food that this nation is getting. So make sure you understand a couple of those points. Number one, how we derived at the original situation of what consumption was. That is where that ISO value line, the price line, is just tangent to our production possibilities frontier. That gives us the level of production, in this instance Q1F and Q1C, of production prior to trade. We make the determination of what the level of trade is going to be by going to the point where we have an indifference curve that is furthest away and is still tangent to the ISO value line, or as I refer to it as the price line. So we have multiple indifference curves that occur here. We go to the one that is just tangent to the ISO value line, and that gives us the consumption level. So if we know originally what was being produced and now what is being consumed, we can calculate, or we can come up with a level of exports. The difference between Q1C and Q2C, this is the level of exports right here. And the difference between Q1F and Q2F, that's the level of imports for food. So make sure you're comfortable with this, especially the introduction of the indifference curve to this analysis, and realize that the individuals are better off now because now they are on an indifference curve that is further away, and that, as we previously stated in that introductory video I have posted for you, that as the indifference curves move further and further out, the higher the level of utility or welfare. So this gives us the highest level of welfare possible in this particular situation.